Putin needs to come back to reality. Russia's February 24th invasion of Ukraine has triggered the most deadly conflict in Europe since World War II and the biggest confrontation between Moscow and the West since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. There is, thus far, little end in sight to the war. The Kremlin says it will fight until all its aims are achieved, while Kiev says it will not rest until every Russian soldier is ejected from all of its territory, including Crimea, which Russia annexed in 2014. We are ready to negotiate with everyone involved about acceptable solutions, but that is up to them. We are not the ones refusing to negotiate, they are, Putin told Russia One state television in the interview. CIA Director William Burns said in an interview published this month that while most conflicts end in negotiation, the CIA's assessment was that Russia was not yet serious about a real negotiation to end the war. An advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Putin needed to return to reality and acknowledge that it was Russia which did not want any negotiations. Russia single-handedly attacked Ukraine and is killing citizens, Mikhailo Podolyak said on Twitter. Russia doesn't want negotiations, but tries to avoid responsibility. No other choice. Putin said Russia was acting in the right direction in Ukraine because the West, led by the United States, was trying to cleave Russia apart. Washington denies it is plotting Russia's collapse. I believe that we are acting in the right direction. We are defending our national interests, the interests of our citizens, our people. And we have no other choice but to protect our citizens, Putin said. Asked if the geopolitical conflict with the West was approaching a dangerous level, Putin said, "I don't think it's so dangerous." Putin said the West had begun the conflict in Ukraine in 2014 by toppling a pro-Russian president in the Maidan Revolution protests. Soon after that revolution, Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine and Russian-backed separatist forces began fighting Ukraine's armed forces in eastern Ukraine. Actually, the fundamental thing here is the policy of our geopolitical opponents, which is aimed at pulling apart Russia, historical Russia, Putin said. Putin casts what he calls a special military operation in Ukraine as a watershed moment when Moscow finally stood up to a Western bloc he says has been seeking to destroy Russia since the 1991 fall of the Soviet Union. Ukraine and the West say Putin has no justification for what they cast as an imperial-style war of occupation which has sown suffering and death across Ukraine. Putin described Russia as a unique country and said the vast majority of its people were united in wanting to defend it. As for the main part, the 99.9% of our citizens, our people who are ready to give everything for the interests of the motherland, there is nothing unusual for me here, Putin said. This just once again convinces me that Russia is a unique country and that we have an exceptional people. This has been confirmed throughout the history of Russia's existence.
Kari Lake loses bid to overturn Arizona vote results. A judge in the U.S. state of Arizona has rejected Republican candidate Kari Lake's effort to overturn the results of her election loss in the state's governor race. In a decision on Saturday, Superior Court Judge Peter Thompson said the court did not find clear and convincing evidence of the widespread misconduct that Lake had alleged had affected the result of the 2022 general election. Lake said she will appeal the ruling. The 53-year-old, who lost to Democrat Katie Hobbs by just more than 17,000 votes, was among the most vocal 2022 Republicans promoting former President Donald Trump's election lies, which she made the centerpiece of her campaign. While most of the other election deniers around the country have conceded after losing their races in November, Lake has not. Instead, she asked the judge to either declare her the winner or order a revote in Maricopa County, home to more than 60% of Arizona's voters and where she claimed that hundreds of thousands of illegal ballots infected the election. In Saturday's ruling, the judge acknowledged the anger and frustration of voters who were inconvenienced in the election and noted that setting aside the results of an election has never been done in the history of the United States. But this court's duty is not solely to incline an ear to public outcry, the judge continued. It is to subject plaintiffs' claims and defendants' actions to the light of the courtroom and scrutiny of the law. But Lake's witnesses did not have any personal knowledge of intentional misconduct, he said. The court cannot accept speculation or conjecture in place of clear and convincing evidence, he added. The findings in the order were in line with judgments against Abe Hamadeh and Mark Fincham, the unsuccessful Republican candidates for Attorney General and Secretary of State, respectively, who also challenged their losses. A court hearing is scheduled Thursday to present the results of recounts in the races for Attorney General, State Superintendent, and a state legislative seat.
Foreign aid groups halt work after Taliban ban on female staff. 3 major non-governmental organizations have halted work in Afghanistan after women were banned from working for them by the Taliban. In a joint statement, CARE International, the Norwegian Refugee Council and Save the Children said they would be unable to continue their work without our female staff. The aid groups are demanding that women can continue to work for them. Afghanistan's ruling Taliban have been steadily repressing women's rights. The latest edict on NGOs came just days after the Taliban banned women from attending university. Abdul Rahman Habib, spokesman for the Taliban's Ministry of Economy, claimed female workers at the foreign aid groups had broken dress codes by not wearing hijabs. The Taliban threatened to cancel the license of any organization that did not swiftly comply with the ban. The leaders of CARE, the NRC, and Save the Children said the organizations would not have jointly reached millions of Afghans in need since August 2021 were it not for their female staff. Whilst we gain clarity on this announcement, we are suspending our programs, demanding that men and women can equally continue our life-saving assistance in Afghanistan, their statement added. Ramaz Alakbarov, the United Nations top humanitarian coordinator, said the UN was trying to get the ban reversed and that it was a red line for the entire humanitarian community. The United Nations could stop humanitarian aid delivery in Afghanistan if the Taliban authorities do not reverse their edict banning women aid workers, the official told the BBC. But Mr. Alakbarov said it was still unclear what the Taliban meant by its edict. He said the Taliban's Minister of Health had told the UN the agency should continue its health-related work and women could report to work and discharge their services. Other ministries had also contacted the UN directly to say work in the areas of disaster management and emergencies should continue, he added. Jan Egeland of the NRC said nearly 500 of the aid group's 1,400 workers were women, and that female staff had been operating according to all traditional values: dress code, movement, separation of offices. He said he hoped the decision would be reversed in the next few days and warned that millions would suffer if NGOs' work was obstructed. NGOs also expressed concern about the effect the ban would have on jobs in the midst of an enormous economic crisis. Female Afghan NGO workers acting as the main earners in their household previously told the BBC of their fear and helplessness following the ban. One asked, "If I cannot go to my job, who can support my family?" Another breadwinner called the news shocking and insisted she had complied with the Taliban's strict dress code. The ban triggered international outcry, with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken warning it would disrupt vital and life-saving assistance to millions. Women have also been prevented from entering parks and gyms, among other public places.